Welcome to this week's slightly delayed edition of This Week in Watches on April 3rd. Apologies, been having too much fun over the Easter weekend. As per usual, highlights of YouTube, Instagram, and some other non-watch related things to keep things interesting. The first YouTube recommendation for today is from a slightly different arena of YouTube, which is obviously the massive channel Gentleman's Gazette. But I did actually particularly enjoy their review of the JLC Reverso in their Is It Worth It series. It's just quite interesting because it's coming at watches from a slightly different angle from the norm. So Raphael, who runs the channel, has openly admitted that watches aren't necessarily his biggest priority versus other sorts of accessories. But in this instance, he does a very good breakdown of the history of the JLC Reverso, as well as having a very good grasp of all of the underpinnings of the watch movement itself. So yeah, really interesting YouTube channel, obviously very eccentric, doesn't rhyme at all with my much more gregarious tastes in watches. I think he'd be ashamed of some of the things that I own, but nevertheless really enjoyed this video and would suggest that you guys go and take a look if you haven't done already. Next up is someone that I'd seen bouncing around Instagram as part of kind of the whole watch fam thing, but I hadn't realised they owned a YouTube channel until I was kind of pointed in the direction from the Timeless Watch channel, who I think does really great content, and I really enjoyed it. It's like super funny. It's kind of, I suppose, more of a female version of the kind of Pride and Pinion channel or the Nico Leonard channel. Just fun, weaves in some chats about watches, but just kind of brings in the sense of humour, really nicely cut and edited, and just doesn't take themselves too seriously. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, so I think it's going to be in my general playlist for the week, watching some of their stuff. So yeah, if you've not watched it, watch Gringo. Really funny channel, really enjoyed it. Next on my list of recommendations for this week is Teddy Baldesser's latest video on his main channel, which is the Zenith Chronomaster Revival Shadow. So I did put one of his photos he'd put on this in my Instagram feed last week, but he's gone on to do the full video. Looks really cool, really stealthy, really nice. Obviously he's worn the clothing to match because he's a very classy guy, but yeah, really like this watch. Nice colouring, outside of my potential price bracket for the moment, but I can obviously enjoy it from afar. So the Zenith Chronomaster Revival Shadow, cool watch and cool video from Teddy Baldesser this week. Next on my list is a new channel for me this week, which was Brandon Manancio's channel, who I'd not come across before, but photography really fantastic, really nicely shot. The macros in particular are fantastic, and this video was the Why I'm Done with the Rolex GMT Master 2, which was his review of the Batman. Relatively predictable of the obvious annoyance of why he's done with Rolexes because of it being impossible to get your hands on it. I think he was given this particular Rolex by Crown and Caliber, but really nice review, very nicely shot, so we'll be keeping an eye out for Brandon's videos in future. He really knows what he's doing with shooting these things. And the last of my YouTube videos for, well, I suppose the last couple of weeks, was the Mad Watch Collector's State of the Collection video for 2021. Really nice job on cutting this one together and making it interesting to watch. Really good, slightly classier than me taste in watches, but still does like the Casios. I like his CWCs, has a bit of an interest in kind of old British military watches. So yeah, it's building up a really nice collection, so enjoyed watching this one this week. So if you've not watched much of the Mad Watch Collector's channel, I would recommend having a look at this one. As for Instagram, in my favourite G-Shock Square editions, on the left-hand side there is a watch I wasn't familiar with, which was the Akira watch. So obviously with Neo Tokyo, it was inspired by Akira, but I didn't realise they'd done an actual Akira watch. In the middle there is one of the channels I'm really enjoying at the moment, which is G Collector Germany, who made me aware of this monochromatic display that they've got on certain models of G-Shock Square, so I want to get my hands on one of these. I think they photograph really nicely. And on the right hand side there is the great G-Shock collector Snapper Jude, and he's got a really nice photo here of the positive display on one of the circuit board series, which comes with lots of nice interchangeable resin bezels and straps. Really like this photo from Snapper Jude. A sneaky additional G-Shock Square in there is from the G-Shock Maniac account with this City Camouflage series. I really like the general vibe on this one with kind of the blue camo and the red. And then the other two photos are from an account that is new to me, but seems to be really popular on Instagram. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it looks like Hit Mix. But he does these really nice old vintage Casios and Seikos, which I really like. I think the one on the right-hand side there looks a bit like an oven that we'd have here in the UK. So I think this is an account that I'm going to be looking at a lot more of in the future. So on the left there is the account of one of my favourite strap makers, Monstraps, who've done this really awesome grey camo NATO strap for the Arnie Seiko, which is one of the Seikos I've been having my eye on. You've probably seen in previous weeks, particularly like the Safani edition. So yeah, if I was to get them, I think this strap would be a nice one. In the middle there it's a bit of a fashion brand, but I quite like them, is a D1 Milano. And this is an edition that they did that was tied to the classic Metal Slug kind of retro video game. Really liked this one, and it had a limited edition. And on the right is the person who made me aware of this brand, which was Killing Time with Norman. He's got his really cool CWC G10, which is a really nice watch, but also matched by that really cool Robotech t-shirt. Great shot, Norman. And finally, on my list of Instagram favourites for this week, on the left-hand side there, is a brand I don't really see too much from, which is Rado, and this is their True Squares series. Obviously I'm a fan of the G-Shock Squares, but these are a bit more high in price, which is their ceramic series. This particular very sci-fi looking one was done with a designer, and I think that really comes through in the really cool sci-fi look, so particularly like that one on the left. In the middle there, from an account I referenced, I believe, last week, is a really nice Bremont watch, also, I believe, on a NATO strap there, matched nicely with the Bark & Jack case and Bremont pen. Really nice British brand, Bremont, so yeah, it's something I've been looking at a little bit over the last few weeks. On the right-hand side there is a guy who seems to be doing really well with his Reels series in particular, which is Mr. Watch 85. I really like the style he's got of the watch, spinning round with the music in the background. Really cool stuff. As for my recommendation from the broader watch environment, it's a bit cheating because it is also a YouTube video, but it's really just digging behind Hodinkee, which for me in the UK is not something that really came onto my radar, but seems to be a route into collecting for a lot of folks, especially over in the US. This came onto my agenda a little bit through the very famous video in this particular series of talking watches, initially with John Mayer, and obviously it flagged in even my brain that wasn't so watch focused back in the day that John Mayer was a big collector, and I think that this series was a big driver behind that. But this particular episode that you'll see on screen is a collector of Heuer watches. Obviously my main association with Heuer is Tag Heuer, which has a pretty not so great reputation amongst the watch community. So I was curious to learn a little bit more about this, and it's a really nicely presented video, and his passion for the brand comes through, so I recommend checking out Dinky's Talking Watches series. As for my non-watch related recommendation for this week, it's a massive channel, it's a very popular channel, but if you've not come across it, I think you'll thank me for it, which is the Bald and Bankrupt travel channel. Now this guy is just a very unique individual, I believe, originally from Bristol. A chap's called Benjamin. His business went bankrupt and he went off on his adventures. I believe owned a hotel in India for a couple of years, but the thing that makes this really fascinating is the fact that he just really digs into the real rural and less well-trodden parts of the countries that he goes to, with a particular focus on the former Soviet countries. And because he speaks very good fluent conversational Russian, he really kind of breaks down the barriers with people that you might think that you might not connect with, and just shows that they're just real people living in some interesting conditions. So if you've not seen it, like, this guy is someone that you should really watch. So Bald and Bankrupt, definitely give it a view. And that's all for this week's edition of This Week in Watches. If you're minded to do so, please do consider liking and subscribing. I do seem to have gained a little bit of traction in the last few weeks, so thanks for those that have already subscribed. If you want to follow me over on Instagram, it's @WatchReactions. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.